or to the state suggestion via Discord. Let's go and check it out.
On September 23rd, during the 80th United Nations General Assembly, held at the UN headquarters in New York, China's premier acknowledged that China will no longer seek special and differential treatment for developing countries.
Okay.
This marks the 24th anniversary since China joined the World Trade Organization. For years, Western countries, including the United States, have pushed China to give up the privilege, citing its economic growth that no longer matches the criteria for such treatment.
Yeah, they shouldn't have
The
it.
Chinese government itself has even referred to China as the world's second largest economy. In fact, even if China didn't renounce it, major trade countries in the EU, the US, and Japan have already declared that they no longer recognize China's developing country status.
Right, 'cause
In
it's
contrast, Taiwan, which joined the WTO a year after China, gave up its developing country benefits in 2018, choosing instead to participate in WTO activities as a developed country. South Korea followed suit in 2019, also giving up its special treatment. The WTO doesn't have a clear definition of what constitutes a developing country. Whether a country is considered developing is self-declared by each WTO member.
Yeah. The problem is that it should be very evident. If we're talking about South Korea, nah, we're past that. If we're talking about North Korea, okay, I get that, right? You have to understand the differences between these two places here. Also, at the same time, if we're talking about China, are you crazy? No.
If a country claims this status, it can enjoy various trade benefits, such as extended transition periods to meet obligations, fewer trade reciprocity requirements from developed countries, and the right to apply higher tariffs to protect domestic industries, along with the ability to provide certain subsidies. For decades, China has taken advantage of these benefits, using its developing country status to gain an upper hand in international trade. While the Chinese government still claims to be a developing country, it no longer seeks new privileges, signaling that China has lost its excuse for benefiting from these advantages at the WTO. It is well known that while China touts itself as an economic powerhouse with the world's second largest GDP, first-place manufacturing output, and long-time foreign exchange reserves, it has simultaneously used its developing country label to negotiate favorable terms in WTO trade talks. Meanwhile, China has invested over $1 trillion in its Belt and Road Initiative.
Right.
Yet on the trade table, it still uses the excuse of needing special treatment as a developing country. The hypocrisy, which persisted for decades, is finally being exposed. The days of benefiting from tariff reductions, subsidy exemptions, and delayed obligations due to its status are coming to an end. China will now have to face the economic challenges that come with these changes.
Right.
The first challenge is the rise in export costs due to higher tariffs. At the end of 2024, 32 countries ended China's preferential treatment. In Europe alone, China's products will face a 3 to 12% increase in export tariffs, raising the costs of hundreds of billions of dollars worth of exports. China's exports have already been declining for the third consecutive year, dropping by 5.6% in 2024. And this is just the beginning.
Yeah, but that's all like fake nonsense, though, guys. Right? The problem is that their exports have. How about this? Their direct exports have absolutely declined, but what they do is origin launder, right? So they start building things in other countries to basically avoid the concept of tariffs. Listen, China needs heavy tariffs. Okay, with the amount of money that they pay their employees specifically to build the things that are sold in like Western and first world countries, they definitely need some tariffs put on them. I'm sorry. Every single thing about how they do business and their economy, for us, is to our detriment. I mean, like, listen, how many workers and jobs have basically been pushed out of this country because, again, labor costs are absolutely minuscule in comparison. We're talking about a place with that pays about what is it, 100 to let's say 150 to 300 yuan, right? Like, listen, guys, no one can compete with that. All right, that's like $300-400, guys, a month. You understand what I'm saying here, guys? So they need tariffs. Their prices for everything needs to basically go up so other places have the ability to compete. That's it.
The second challenge is the loss of the ability to legally subsidize exports. With the end of its developing country status, China will no longer be able to justify the massive subsidies it has been providing. Over the past decade, the Chinese government has been giving up to 2 trillion yuan annually in subsidies to state-owned enterprises and export businesses. Now that China is considered a developed country, these subsidies will be seen as serious violations of trade rules, leading to an increase in anti-dumping and anti-subsidy investigations from other countries. The US imposed a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles, and the European Union is launching anti-subsidy investigations against Chinese solar panels and EVs, with additional tariffs expected to range from 20% to 40%.
Depending on the
Emerging
market.
markets like India, Mexico, and Brazil are also initiating anti-dumping measures against Chinese steel and textiles.
Yeah, do solar panels also.
Third, China's influence in international trade and economics will be cut off. The Chinese government has long used the developing country status as a justification for massive subsidies and dumping goods, exploiting other countries' wealth.
Yep.
Subsidized Chinese companies have flooded global markets with cheap products, manipulating prices of steel, cement, solar panels, electric vehicles, and more,
Telling you, guys,
undermining
it's the
local
solar
businesses
panels
in important countries
you
for
need to worry
monopolistic profit. This strategy will now be exposed, and the developing country excuse that China once had will no longer hold. In 2019, President Trump made it clear that the U.S. has never accepted China as a developing country. Even after Trump returned to the White House in 2024, the trade tensions between the two countries were far from resolved. While both sides have reached temporary ceasefires and continue negotiating, high tariffs on Chinese exports remain. Additionally, the WTO faces increasing internal pressure to reform as global economic conditions continue to shift. Now, China's premier has announced that China will no longer seek special treatment at the WTO, essentially acknowledging Trump's previous criticism. Some scholars believe this announcement is part of an effort to ease tensions with the U.S. and preempt further pressure. This move comes at a time of ongoing U.S.-China trade tension and rising pressure for WTO reforms. By declaring it will no longer seek developing country benefits, China aims to reduce international pressure, even as it claims to still consider itself a developing country. This contradictory stance reveals the Chinese government's internal struggles and multiple crises, including employment issues, foreign investment challenges, local government debt, and the collapse of the real estate and financial sectors. Amid its growing economic troubles, China continues to boast about its economy, claiming it is stable and improving, with the world's largest foreign exchange reserves and second largest GDP, while engaging in dollar diplomacy to maintain its image as a global economic power. But when it comes to trade rules and responsibilities, China still cries that it needs special treatment as a developing country. China wants to appear both wealthy and needy, seeking both dignity and privileges. Losing its developing country status means China will face more obligations on the global stage. It will have to compete with the US and Europe in carbon emissions reductions, won't have exemption rights in subsidy disputes, and will have no more grace periods for market opening. For China, which is already deep in debt, this is like taking away its last lifeline. In 2024, China's local government debt had surpassed 97 trillion yuan, with the real estate bubble bursting, exports shrinking, and consumer spending weak. These are like death sentences for the Chinese government.
Listen, guys, no one there, on average at least, can afford to live in these like cities that they build in the middle of nowhere. Okay, not really. Like they build like mega cities, and I mean mega cities in like 5 years. Okay, multiple skyscrapers, tofu drag all over the place, obviously, but not everywhere. But tofu drag. All right, Google the word, please. But then after that, though. No one can afford to live in any of these cities. Like you can be the only person in an entire skyscraper type of thing, right? It's plausible in some of these ghost cities that exist in China. It's wild. Yeah, they can't afford it.
The loss of its developing country status will only add a heavy burden in the form of international rules, shattering China's developing country dream once and for all. What follows will be a relentless international economic and political struggle. In the past, China could use its developing country status to avoid some of the harsh realities, but from now on, China will face the harsh truth with no cover, no way to maneuver. This is not just the loss of a label, it's the beginning of a systemic crisis. For China, exports were the last pillar supporting its economy. With the real estate market crashing, infrastructure overextended, and weak domestic consumption, only exports were holding things together. Losing the benefits of being a developing country will expose China to even harsher international trade rules. As of 2024, China's total exports reached 3.4 trillion, with 60% dependent on the European and American markets. Exports to the European Union were $558 billion, a 7.2% decline from the previous year. If additional tariffs are fully implemented, exports are expected to shrink by 15 to 20% in 2025. In the U.S. market, China's exports have already fallen below $400 billion, a 30% drop from the peak of $550 billion in 2018. Morgan Stanley predicts that without preferential treatment, China could see a $600 billion drop in exports over the next 3 years. Companies like Apple, Samsung, Nike, and Adidas will continue to shift part of their production to Vietnam, India, and Indonesia. A McKinsey report states that by 2030, Vietnam's manufacturing exports could reach $600 billion, nearly half of China's current level, signaling the shift of the world's factory away from China. This collapse of China's manufacturing dominance affects not only businesses, but millions of workers reliant on the export supply chain. According to the Chinese National Bureau of Statistics, China's manufacturing workforce is around 180 million, mainly concentrated in export-heavy provinces like Guangdong, Jiangsu, Zhejiang, and Fujian. As of 2024, over 4,200 small and medium-sized export companies in Dongguan, Guangdong have closed. In Yiwu, Zhejiang, textile and small commodities exports have sharply dropped, with many factory owners choosing to shut down rather than take new orders due to tariffs and subsidy cuts. In Quanzhou, Fujian, shoe and clothing orders are moving to Vietnam and Indonesia, and factory workers are being forced to return home. The combination of higher tariffs, subsidy losses, and the shift of orders has led to direct job losses for many workers in China's world factory. While the official unemployment rate remains at 5.2 to 5.5%, Goldman Sachs estimates that youth unemployment in China has already surpassed 45%, and the situation will worsen if the export chain breaks down. For foreign investment, losing the developing country status means that China no longer offers the same preferential treatment, reducing its attractiveness.
Not still attractive because their wages are still like absolutely minuscule compared to other places.
In fact, foreign investment in China has already started to decline significantly. Data released by China's Ministry of Commerce shows that from January to May 2024, actual foreign investment in China dropped by 13.2%, and the total amount of foreign investments received was down 10.9%. In May, only 37.4 billion yuan was received, a decrease of 13.2% compared to the previous year. In January 2024, China's foreign investment dropped from 97.6 billion yuan, marking the worst start in 4 years. Overall, foreign direct investment in China fell by 27.1% in 2024.
Okay, so it definitely looks like it's going down, right? I mean, I guess I would expect it to at least go down at least a little bit. But again, we're still talking about over 60, 70% at times. So again, we're talking about like a place that has like the infrastructure to basically build a brand for you. Right. Obviously at all varying levels of quality, but most people when they try to build things specifically by going to like Guangzhou specifically, they'll go for the cheapest of the cheapest. And then I'm sure, so for example, I'm sure you guys have heard, cheap Chinese crap, right? Like I'm buying something, but it's like cheap Chinese crap. It's generally that exact thing, because think about this here. The thing that you bought for your, I don't know, $20, $30 was basically manufactured for 14 cents. Yeah. Now understand that's just to maximize profit. So the product you're buying is garbage. It's manufactured for 14 cents. What are you expecting from 14 cents, guys? Regardless of how much you paid for it, it was still, again, garbage. Now, in the same breath here, you can also go to Guangzhou specifically and have something manufactured where you're actually paying for actual quality, but obviously the product is not going to be more expensive for you to sell, right? But it will be smarter because you're actually building a quality product. China does have the ability to build a super quality product that will rival everywhere else, right? But the problem is that what we get in America is generally made by like companies and people from America going there, getting something manufactured for as cheap as humanly possible, okay? And I mean as cheap as humanly possible, and crazy cheap for what you're paying, right? But with like a 10,000% profit type of thing, when they could have probably just taken, I don't know, a 2,000% profit, and given an actual quality product. So let's not get fully confused with that. You'd have to go there to understand what I'm talking about. Like go there, breathe the air, right? And speak to someone in manufacturing, right? Specifically, like if you're trying to build a brand of sorts, a clothing brand, even, right? Anything, any type of brand. Textile is really good though. But again, if you're trying to build a brand, don't always go for the cheapest of the cheapest, because that's what Westerners do. They go out there and then they have someone build something for nothing and then sell it. And then your experience with this is, oh, this is made in China. Garbage. Right? Because you've been going to the dollar store and wondering why all the stuff is breaking, bro. All right. But either way, listen. You guys all have an absolutely amazing day. If you guys are new here, please like and subscribe. And in the meantime, catch you guys later.